Likutei Sichos in Chelik Chof Hey, Volume 25. This is the Sicha for Asora B'Teves. Remember, actually, the Rebbe saying the Sicha on Divrei Kivushim. The Rebbe would speak in between by Atonis after Mincha, and the Rebbe would give Divrei Kivushim. And at that point, the Rebbe also spoke about this idea that over here, the beginning of all the trouble begins with the 10th of Teves, in which it says the Melech Bavel, the Babylonian king, he surrounded and he put under siege. The Rebbe said there is a positive. The Eibishter always brings the healing before he brings the punishment, and there's a positive about the level of unity. Everybody's forced to be together. There's the siege over here, as we'll see. We'll go step by step. We're learning this Lilu Nishmas Rav Levi Yitzchok, whose dedication as a shliach, as an Amar B'tz Torah, dedicated chassid of the Rebbe, his first yahrzeit is coming up, and we're dedicating this learning Lilu Nishmasei Tehei Nishmasei Tzrura B'Tzrei Chaim. We'll go step by step. Asara B'Tevis. Aleph. So first, the Rebbe establishes that the Asara B'Tevis is basically the first and also the principle of all the other fasts. Der Tainis von Asara B'Tevis is mitamze. The fast, why do we fast on a 10th of Tevis, is for the reason, was boy in them tog on Asara B'Tevis, Somach Belech Bavel, the king of Bavel, came close and encircled Al Yerushalayim, the city of Yerushalayim. Vehevia b'motzer u'b'motzik, and he brought it into siege and into distress. The fact that the king of Bavel with his armies went and besieged Yerushalayim, bringing it into siege and distress. And that was really the beginning of all the other days that we commemorate and we fast for the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Was der mit hat sich eingeheben Klolus Inyan Hagolus. That began the general idea of exile. The späte dike Mu'urois B'Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, that later on that happened on the 17th of Tammuz, in which Hufka Ha'ir, the city, was actually broken into, split into broke down the wall of the city. That took place on the 17th of Tammuz, and then Betisha B'Av Churban Beis Hamikdash, and on the 9th of Av took place the destruction. They actually destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. So those were the other two things following the siege that took place on the Asara B'Tevis, followed by the splitting into the city on the 17th of Tammuz and the destruction of Beis Hamikdash on the 9th of Av. And finally, the fourth fast on Gimel B'Tishrei, on the 30th of Tishrei. Some opinions, Rosh Hashanah, some people say that the fast of Gedalia, Tzem Gedalia ben Achikam, really was supposed to be on Rosh Hashanah, and the fact that it takes place on Gimel on the third day of Tishrei is because it was a nitcha, because that was Harigas Gedalia. That was the killing of Gedalia. The people didn't want to pay attention to his prophecies, in which he warned them that Beis Hamikdash will be destroyed if they don't better their ways. So the others, eine gewähnt bepashtus a hemshech from the Motzer al Yerushalayim. They came as a continuation from the siege on Yerushalayim, and then later on. So basically, if we are looking to what is the very first and the most what that began all this, we have to say that this is a sort of betoivus, and we actually see this. The Rebbe says in a halacha that a sort of betoivus, to a certain degree and one in some aspect, is even more severe because it began all the problems. Then it's more severe in its laws as far as fasting, even more than the other days. So the Rebbe brings down the Yeshleimar V'Geret Amol Barucha. So we can say, as we had spoken sometimes at length, Adosis de Hasbore in das Havudraham. This is actually what explains the opinion of the Avudraham. The Avudraham says that Asara B'Tevis is in more uh, strict than the other fast, that if Asara B'Tevis could fall on Shabbos, which it can't, but if it did fall on Shabbos, when it fell on Shabbos, uh, then you would fast there, although all the other fast days are pushed overridden. Dosi das borin das avudraham, as der Tainis von Asore Betevis hatten sich a Teuke v'chumra. That the fast of Asore Betevis contains within itself a force and a stringency legabe de andere gimel tzoimis relative to the other three fast days. As afilu hoyo chal b'Shabbos, even if it came Asora b'Tevis on Shabbos, lo yehoyu yecholim lidchoisuliyim achar. They could not push it off to another day, mipnei shenemar boy, because it says be'etzem hayoim hazeh k'mebiyim kippurim. Over there in the posik in Cheskel, it says etzem hayoim hazeh. From the fact etzem hayoim hazeh, we learn out that Yom Kippur does not override Shabbos. And if Yom Kippur comes on Shabbos, we celebrate and we do Yom Kippur, and it overrides the Shabbos. Same thing would we do with regards to Asora B'Tevis, that it would override the Yom Tov, that Asora would override the Shabbos, and we'd have to fast over there had it kept. The only thing is, it's made up in such a way that it doesn't happen. And the reason is why would be explaining why would that be more strict than all the other fast days which do not override the Shabbos, and we push away the fast because of Shabbos. Bald as it is der mocker von alle sibes legibel outsimers, because Sora B'Tevis is the actual source for all the other things that happened, other causes for the three fasting is a dribe mer chomer with the gimel tzemes. Therefore, he is Asora B'Tevis is more strict than the three fast days, and it would override the Shabbos. Now, Rebbe wants to say that this is also not only the beginning of the happenings that we're discussing before. This happened in the first Beis Hamikdash, but this is also the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash, because the tzoros that led to the first destruction, led to the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. V'bal das churban beis sheni under golus al yidei zeh, since the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash and the exile that came about through the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, is a hemshech von churban bayis rishon. So this is really a continuation. We had a destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, and then the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. So it turns out that the first Beis Hamikdash destruction is the beginning of all the destructions. And the Rebbe says, especially, it's not only that the Churban is related, it's a continuation of the destruction, but even at the time that the Beis Hamikdash stood, it wasn't fully, it was still destruction, because there were things that were missing in the second Beis Hamikdash. So we didn't really fully recuperate from the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, so it still continues. Bald das Churban Beis Hamikdash Sheni und der Gosel is a hemshach from Churban Bayis Rishon. It's a continuation of the destruction of this first Beis Hamikdash. Ubefrat, especially as afilu the geula bisman Bayis Sheni is not given a geula shlema, that the redemption that did take place in the second Beis Hamikdash, that wasn't a complete redemption. In Bayis Sheni chosru heidvarim v'chulu. In the second Beis Hamikdash, 5 main things of the first Beis Hamikdash were lacking, so it never really was fully rebuilt. Komtuis as Asora B'Tevis, so it turns out that the tenth of Teves, which started the destruction, and we never really fully got back to it, even with the Beis Hamikdash, and then the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, as Asori b'Teves is the Aschol v'Sibus of Klolus Inyan Hagolus. It is the cause and the beginning of the general idea of exile. And as the Rebbe said before, that's why perhaps it's more stringent. But the Rebbe wants to bring all this and to say that in the very beginning of when the destruction starts, Hashem already provides some healing for this. And as we read about and we experience and talk about the uh, destruction and the golus that takes place in Asara B'Tevis, we also can find words of comfort and refuah, a healing, as the Eibishter brings the healing even before he brings the punishment, as the Rebbe will continue. Beis. Torah sagt a klal, Torah says a rule, as a Kodesh Baruch Hu magdim refuah lamaka. Hashem proceeds to send the healing before the punishment, before the beating. Shapirushe, ergitem koyach, what it means is that he gives the power of holding them oifen achinayle in refuah. That means that gives the highest level in healing. If you say that the healing comes before the makkah, before the wound, so that means that it's the highest level that it precedes it. Because sometimes if you're already wounded, then we have to heal you. That means that you had a wound already, and it's not as the Abishter's way of healing is he doesn't allow it to begin with because he has the healing beforehand. Was das ist beäufen von Loyosi Malecho, I will not put it on you. Nicht nur is es Arifu was helped Mekanul Habe, not only is it a healing that helps from here and on, or that Arifu, fil Arifu was spoiled Lemafreya, or even a healing that impacts before, so it's in a way, it even retroactively, but this is more than that. No, noch mehr. Melechatchile osim malacha. The Eibishter says, Kol hamachle asher samti b'mitzrayim osim malacha. It doesn't put it you on the first place. This is even the highest level of healing. Davon ist euch verstandig, as euch benegehe der Makke von Golus, that also, we can also understand when we discuss about here as it relates to the wound, to the beating of Golus, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu Magdim Refuah L'Maka. He proceeds to give us the healing before he gives us the plague, before he gives us the Makkah, before he gives us the Golus. Noch Eider es hat sich angegeben der Inyan HaGolus, even before the concept, the idea of Golus began. But this is given now. This, as we stated before, Be'ez HaSamach Melech Bavel al Yerushalayim, when the king of Bavel surrounded, came close and encircled, put Yerushalayim in siege. Hat der Eibishter schon aufgewiesen, so the Eibishter already pointed out, angewiesen, in was es besteht der Refuah, what the healing consists of. Und in einem Eufen, in such a way from Velosim Alecha, I'm not going to put it on you, meaning the healing starts, it starts with the healing. Within this Samach Melech Bavel is already the healing. And the Samach Melech Bavel demonstrates how the unity of Yidden is the way that we don't bring the Golus in the first place, because even though the second Beis Hamikdash that Rebbe will explain was clearly because of Sinas Chinam, but also the first Beis Hamikdash is in a similar way connected to that, as the Rebbe brings out now. As Al Zogen, as the Siba of them Toike Ve'edich from Golus Ha'achrein. Sages of blessed memory tell us that the reason for the strength and the length of this golus, this last golus, bizaz loinis gali kitzam, to the extent that we don't know when the end is. The first golus we knew, Shivim, 70 years was the golus, but here we don't know the end. Why is that? Is there oven from sinas chinam? Is the sin of seifel hatred al pizeh Pashut, based on this, it's obvious as the refuah, geula of golus. So it's understand that what is the medicine, the healing for the golus, is that hepach is the opposite of what caused the golus avas chinam. Senseless love, love even for no reason. Avas Yisrael, loving another Jew, ubishlei Musa, and into the most complete way, not just love, but achdus Yisrael, unity. Und euch benegeya zum Churban Bayis Rishon. So this is the second Beis Hamikdash, why we had know it's Sinas Chinam. But also as it pertains to the first destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, was is given nit mitzat siba anal, which was not because of the reason of Sinas Chinam, nor to lib the Gimel Avedas, but that came because of the three sins from Aveda Zora, Gila Rais, Sichos Domim. Of these sins, idol worship, promiscuous behavior, and pouring of blood is the Chaber Yaduos was Chazal Zogen, but it's known what our sages of blessed memory say, as afilu, when Eden sein Rachmon Islam Evde even if Yidden are, God forbid, if they do worship idols, is Oib ze sein and Be'achdes, if at least they have unity, if they're one, they're united, can Canaan Nitobin can Shlita say nobody can dominate them. So we see that the necessity for protection is unity. So therefore, we need to say, as Nachedres Tzachon gave the Makkah from Golus, before the beating, the plague of Golus started, is in the Motzir Gufa, in this siege itself, Samach Melech Bavel, that the king of Bavel surrounded, came to the walls of Yerushalayim, how the Eibishter gegeben dem Koyach of Sholem v'Achdus. There, the Eibishter gave the power for peace and unity, Magdim Refuah Lamaka, to precede the healing before the plague. And that is the idea of the surrounded by the king of Bavel, which not only is the negative, but as the Rebbe will explain, that possesses the power to bring people together, that nobody can leave. Everybody has to join and be there at the same time, as the Rebbe continues in Ois Gimel. Ois Gimel. The Bir Bezeh. The Pe'ula von HaMotzer Bepashtus is, what's the effect of a siege? Very simply, as ein yotze ve'ein bo, nobody can go out and nobody can come in. Keiner von der Balager ter Stadt, no one from the city under siege can nit arausgehen, are not able to go out. The Hainu, that means as is a matze wo alle Muslim bleiben zusammen. It's a condition, it's a situation that everybody has to be together. The Hainu, bleiben zusammen. In the Zauberstadt, they all have to remain in the same city. Und kein Fremder, and no stranger, nicht von Toshvei Ha'ir, who does not, of the inhabitants of the city, can nicht rein, and cannot come in. Sie ist dort, nor Eden. Only Yidden are there in the city. Von Ha'ir Yerushalayim, everybody is in which city? Not just any city, the city of Yerushalayim. Vosinyona is Ir Shechubra Lo Yachdov. It's a city that connects everybody together. Ziz Mechaber Uma'achad al Yidden. It connects and unites all Yidden. Noch mehr. Furthermore, the inyan from Yerushalayim, the idea, what is Yerushalayim, is vi ongedeitet in their nomen, as pointed out in the name of Yerushalayim means Yire Shalom, complete awe, fear of Hashem. Shleibus Hayira, the complete Yira. Und wie steht in the Rishonim, as written, as stated in the Rishonim, in the earlier ones, as Yerushalayim hat mashpi given Yiras Shamayim, that the city, Yerushalayim, just being there, that influenced with fear of heaven, if the Alavas flegen dort kommen, all those who used to come there, und haben gesehen der Avodah beMikdash, and they witnessed the service in the Mikdash Chulu. Und das ist, weil bei sie verblieben euch noch sehr umkehren sich heim. That remained with them even after they returned home. So everybody is together, united in Yerushalayim, united in a city that is Yerushalayim. All Yidden, all the Yidden are there all together. The Motzer of Yerushalayim brings to them this siege on Yerushalayim, brings to this, as nicht nur sollen alle Yidden sein beachtet. Not only should they all be united, nur noch mehr, but furthermore, as od die Achdus soll sein in an Ort, but that this unity should be in a place for Shleimus Hayira, in where there is wholesome awe, fear of Hashem. And Achdus was is miyused of Torah, mitzvahs, kedusha, a unity which is based on Torah, mitzvahs, and holiness. The Haschole von Inyan Hagolus is given by as the Makke Gufa. So this is the idea that it started off the exile, was that this beating, this plague, this the wounding that we Golus had gedarf koidem sein der Refuah, that brought about this healing. But Adrabe, the Refuah is koidem amaka. This healing comes before the Makkah. That Inyan ha'achdus was their motzer is goydem. That's the idea, that unity that this siege causes is that level of Yiras Sholem unity in Yerushalayim. That starts and openly bald by honoring from the Motzer immediately as the siege begins. Noch eider mehepton feeling the Makkah even before you feel the beating and the tzores from the Motzer of the siege. Achas kamo v'kamo, par es kum di matores oyev in the Motzer, das einem the Stadt before the goals of the enemy of the want the sieges to conquer the city. But what happens first, very first, is that siege, that unity, that the unifying. That's the Hagdomas Refuah Lamaka. So the point the Rebbe is making over here, that even before the problem, we have the healing, we have that union, that unifying effect. That's the Hagdomas Refuah Lamaka. Val Pizay's move on. Dem der Ausdruck by the Motzer she'eina rogel klal. This also explains to us the expression that is used by this siege, which is totally uncommon. Somach melech bovel. Somach means a support. Melech bovel supported. Von sheidish, von smicha, and hilf. That comes from the root of leaning and helping. How does that help? Und noch mehr, das ist nicht gewesen am Matzev, in welchen Iden haben sich hereingestellt bibchirosen. This wasn't a condition, a situation that the Yidden put themselves, they chose to be in that condition. Nor Nebuchadnezzar hat Machriach given Iden, but it was Nebuchadnezzar forced the Yidden zu gefinnen sich in am Maimed Matzev. He forced him to be in a situation, a condition was hat bederach hateva goyim given und gebracht, which naturally, in the natural way, this caused und gebracht Achdus Yisrael. It brought that unifying of the Yidden in Yerushalayim, zusammen mit dem Beis Hamikdash, together with the Beis Hamikdash. This brought, even they didn't choose it, was brought on them. Und das soll mevatel sein dem Motzer. And therefore, that will negate the siege. That unifying that the Eberste brings Nebuchadnezzar, not by their choice, forces them to be in Yerushalayim, mid the Beis Hamikdash, and that negates the siege, that the goal, what they wanted to do, lo yosim alecha, they're not going to put on you. Norman Hodok Bechidat Chavish. So that should have protected them. So how come Taka the siege happened and then they were exiled? Because there is free choice. Oder Matze von Motzer, so that condition of being under siege, nit aufgetan an Achdus Amitis, he had not accomplished a true unity because of the choice that they made, the Yidden. Und Bemele hat Nebuchadnezzar gekannt, if sie haben Maschlit, and then Nebuchadnezzar was able to dominate them and destroy the Beis Hamikdash, and the Yidden went to exile. Dalit. The Inyan for the Dalit Tzoymes is doch, so what is the idea? Why are we fasting? Is La'eder Halavavis, to arouse the hearts. Livtoyach Darkei HaTshuva, to open up the ways of Tshuva. Was durch dem Zikorin von die Dvorim, by remembering these items, was haben Geirim given Oisem Hatzoris. Once we remember those matters that caused us these troubles, Noshuv Lahetiv, then we are going to return to do good, as the Lashon of the Rambam. So this is the idea of fasting, is in order for us to reflect on what happened. Is verstandig as Asora B'Teves, so it's understood, Asora B'Teves, der Mund Eden L'chodorosh. First and foremost, it reminds the Yid, as the Weg zum Mevatel sein Oison Hatzoris. What is the way to get rid of those troubles? Is durch Avas Yisrael v'Achdus Yisrael, is through loving of a Yid and the unity of a Yid. As alle Yidden zusammen darfen sich einschließen zusammen. That all Yidden together need to close themselves in Bizen an Eifon von Chubra lo Yachdov, in a way of making that connection together. Mit an Achdus was is verbunden, and with a unity which is tied mit Shleimus Hayiru Beis Hamikdash, with the complete fear of Hashem and the Beis Hamikdash. This gives us the reminder that's the way to negate and get rid of those troubles, is united together with the Beis Hamikdash, with other Yidden in Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim. Mit an Achdus apnim v'shchanti b'soichem used of Torah mitzvahs. So then the Eibishter rests amongst us based on Torah mitzvahs. We all should unite around Torah mitzvahs and with complete Yirah Shamayim, and that is the means of getting rid and being mevatel those problems. And then we'll actually negate these fasting. Not only will they stop existing, these fasting, they'll be turned around to become, the language of the Rambam, to become a holiday and days of Yom Tov and Mesosim v'Simcha. Since the descent of Asora B'Teves is größer with the andere Tzoymes, it's greater than the other fast. Kenal Sif Aleph, as we said before, Sif Aleph. But euch the Aliyah sein größer, this elevation will be greater. As wird sein in a Madrege von Etzem Hayom Hazeh. It'll be in a level of, as the Rebbe said brought before, from the that you would fast because it says Etzem Hayom Hazeh from the Avudraham. So it will be in the level of the essence of the day, B'dugma Tzu Yom HaKippurim L'mal Yusuf. So that's going to be in the advantageous way. Over here, Etzem Hayom Hazeh was the punishment for the surrounding of the siege of Yerushalayim. But it's going to be to the level in advantage, like by Yom Kippur, Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh, Shabbos Shabbosin, it's Shabbos Shabbosin versus Hecher from Shabbos, which is higher than Shabbos, and it's also Hasidi Kodesh. It's the 10th. The 10th is Kodesh. This is Sichos Asora B'Teves Tafshin Mem Gimel.